We married for a deal, until he kissed me in public and ruined the act. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us go back to the main character. The contract was already on the table when I realized my hands were shaking. Not from fear, not exactly. From the weight of what I was about to agree to. Marry him. Not for love, not for hope, but for business. The paper between us was thick, expensive, and unforgiving. Every sentence was precise, clean, cold. Just like the man sitting across from me. He was a billionaire, a real one. The kind whose name moved markets and silenced rooms. The kind who never repeated himself, because he never needed to.
Read page 6 again, he said calmly. That is the most important part.
Page 6. No emotional attachment. No public affection beyond what is necessary. No falling in love. I looked up at him. His expression did not change. Dark suit, perfect posture, eyes that calculated instead of dreamed. You are not asking for a wife, I said. You are asking for a role. That is correct, he replied, and you will be paid very well to play it. Paid. That word echoed louder than it should have, because an hour earlier, I had been sitting in my car outside a closed bank branch, gripping my steering wheel, trying to figure out how to stop my life from collapsing. Rent overdue, medical bills stacked on the kitchen counter, one final notice away from losing everything. This was not greed, this was survival. You need a public marriage, I said slowly, and I need a way out. He nodded once. Exactly. The deal was simple. Appearances only.
A strategic union to stabilize his company image and secure a critical merger.
I would be the polished, loyal wife the board wanted to see. In return, he would erase every financial problem I had. No touching, no emotions, no mistakes. He slid a thin ring box across the table. Inside was a diamond so flawless it looked unreal. Not a symbol of love, a prop. You will move into the guest wing, he added. You will attend events when required, smile when necessary, and when the contract ends, we walk away clean. Walk away clean, I laughed softly, before I could stop myself. You make marriage sound like a temporary job. He met my eyes then. For the first time, something flickered. Not warmth, not kindness, just honesty. That is because for us, he said, it is. The room fell silent. I thought about the life I was about to lose, and the one I could save. I picked up the pen. When I signed my name, it felt less like a wedding vow and more like crossing a line I could never uncross. I did not know it yet, but neither did he. Because contracts are very good at controlling behavior. They are terrible at controlling hearts. And one day soon, in front of everyone who mattered most to him, he would forget every rule he wrote. He would pull me close. He would kiss me. And in that moment, the act would be over. The morning after I signed the contract, my old life ended quietly. No dramatic goodbye, no final look back. Just a knock on my apartment door at exactly 7:30 a.m., followed by a man in a tailored coat who introduced himself as the driver. He did not ask if I was ready. He already knew the answer. My suitcase felt lighter than it should have as I slid into the back seat of the black sedan. Through the window, my building looked smaller than it ever had, like it had already forgotten me. The drive lasted 40 minutes. 40 minutes of silence, leather seats, and a city that slowly changed from familiar streets into guarded gates and manicured hedges. When the car stopped, I understood something very clearly. This was not a home. It was a system. The mansion stood behind iron gates, white stone glowing under the morning sun. Everything was controlled, measured, perfect. The kind of place where nothing happened by accident. Inside, the air smelled clean and expensive. A woman with a tablet greeted me by name, her smile professional and distant. She led me down a long hallway without asking questions. "This will be your wing," she said, stopping in front of a door. "Breakfast is at 8. Public events will be added to your calendar." Calendar. My life had been reduced to scheduled appearances. My room was larger than my entire apartment. floor-to-ceiling windows, a bed that looked untouched,
clothing already hanging in the closet, all in my size, chosen by someone who had studied me without ever meeting me. I changed slowly, still half expecting this to be a mistake. At 8 sharp, I entered the dining room. He was already there. He sat at the head of the table, reading something on his tablet, coffee untouched. He did not look up when I entered. "You are on time," he said. "I assumed that mattered," I replied. "It does." That was it. No good morning, no welcome. As we ate, he began explaining my new routine like a business briefing. Media training, etiquette coaching, wardrobe fittings, a charity gala in 2 weeks, a board dinner the week after that. "You will smile," he said calmly. "You will speak when spoken to. If you are unsure, look at me. I will guide the conversation. And if someone asks about us," I asked. He finally looked up. "We are stable, respectful, private," he said. "That is all anyone needs to know." After breakfast, the transformation began. Stylists arrived, trainers, consultants who corrected how I stood, how I walked, how I held a glass of wine. Every movement was adjusted, refined, rehearsed. I learned how to sit beside him without touching, how to laugh without revealing too much, how to exist in his world without disrupting it. At first, he watched from a distance, observing, evaluating. Then, slowly, something shifted. When a stylist pushed too hard, he intervened. When a comment crossed a line, he shut it down with a single look. It was subtle, almost invisible, but I noticed. That evening, after everyone left, I stood alone in the hallway, barefoot, holding a pair of heels that suddenly felt impossible. Without a word, he knelt in front of me, not to propose, not to perform, just to adjust the strap I could not reach. Our eyes met for half a second longer than necessary. "This was not in the contract," I said quietly. "No," he replied, standing. "But it was efficient." I laughed before I could stop myself. For the first time since signing my name, the silence between us felt different, still controlled, still careful, but no longer empty. And somewhere between schedules and rehearsed smiles, I realized the most dangerous part of this arrangement was not pretending to be his wife. It was how easy it was becoming. The first public appearance came sooner than I expected. 3 days after the fittings, 2 rehearsals later, one warning that sounded more like a rule than advice. "Tonight matters," he said as the car pulled away from the mansion. "Do not improvise." The venue was a private dining hall overlooking the river, glass walls glowing against the night. Valets, security, cameras waiting just far enough away to pretend this was not a performance. As the car door opened, he stepped out first, confident, controlled, untouchable. Then he turned and offered his hand. Not warmly, not gently, correctly. I took it. The moment our hands connected, the noise shifted, conversations lowered. Eyes followed us as we walked inside. I felt them measuring me, comparing me to expectations I did not know existed. This was the board dinner. Men in tailored suits, women in restrained elegance, power disguised as politeness. Every smile carried a question. Who is she? Does she belong here? How long will she last? He guided me through the room with practiced ease, introducing me only when necessary. He never squeezed my hand, never leaned too close, just enough distance to look composed. "She is doing well," someone murmured as we passed. I heard it. He heard it too. Dinner began. Long table, assigned seats. I was placed beside him, exactly where the cameras would see us if they tried. Halfway through the first course, the questions started. "How did you meet?" a man across from us asked, smiling thinly. I glanced at him, as instructed. He answered smoothly, "Through mutual connections." A woman further down the table leaned in. "You must be very patient," she said to me. "His work consumes him." I smiled. I understand his priorities. That earned a few raised brows. Then came the moment that was not rehearsed. A board member laughed lightly and said, "We were surprised by the marriage. We assumed you would choose someone more aligned with the company." The table went quiet. I felt the weight of the room settle on me. This was the test. I could stay silent, or I could speak. I set my fork down slowly. "I was not chosen to align with the company," I said calmly. "I was chosen because I do not." A pause. "He needs strategy here," I continued, "not an echo." No one spoke. Then he did something unexpected. He placed his hand over mine, not to perform,
not for the audience, to support. The conversation shifted after that. Less probing, more respect. When we finally stood to leave, I realized my shoulders were no longer tense. Outside, the night air felt lighter. "You did not have to do that," I said quietly, as we walked toward the car. "You were effective," he replied, "and accurate." That was his version of praise. As the car pulled away, neither of us spoke for a long moment. "You surprised them," he said finally. "So did you," I replied. He looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time since the contract was signed. "This arrangement," he said slowly, "will require adjustments." I nodded. "So will you." He did not argue. The city lights reflected across the glass as the car moved forward, carrying us deeper into a role that was no longer as simple as it once seemed. We were still pretending, but the lines were starting to blur. The adjustments began the next morning, not with words, with space. I noticed it first at breakfast. The seat beside him was no longer an unspoken boundary. He did not look up when I sat down, but he did not move his tablet away either. Small changes, intentional ones. The calendar filled faster after the board dinner. Interviews, a charity foundation visit, another gala, this one larger, louder, and far less forgiving. Every appearance sharpened the act. I learned how to walk beside him without matching his stride, how to answer questions without revealing weakness, how to let silence work in my favor instead of against me. And somehow, without discussion, the rules softened. He stopped briefing me before events. He started asking what I thought afterward. One evening, after a long rehearsal, I found him in the study, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, staring at numbers on a screen like they might betray him if he blinked. "You are still working?" I asked. "It keeps my mind quiet," he said. I leaned against the doorway. "That is not what quiet looks like." He glanced at me, then back at the screen. "You should be resting. You should be breathing." That earned a pause. He closed the laptop. We sat in silence for a moment, the kind that did not demand anything, the kind that simply existed. "You handled the board well," he said. "They respect you." "I did not do it for them." "I know." The admission hung between us. Later that week, during a wardrobe fitting, a stylist commented on how natural we looked together, how convincing. He dismissed her without a word. After she left, I turned to him. "Does it bother you when people say that?" He did not answer right away. "It complicates things," he said finally. "For you or for the deal?" I asked. "For me." That night, a storm rolled in without warning. Thunder cracked over the estate, sharp and close. The lights flickered once, then steadied. I found him on the balcony, standing too close to the edge, rain misting his hair. "You should come inside," I said. "I will in a moment." I hesitated, then stepped beside him. The city below was distant, quiet under the rain. "I do not like storms," he said suddenly. I looked at him, surprised. "I do not like things I cannot control," he added. The words were not dramatic, just honest. Without thinking, I placed my hand on the railing near his, not touching, just close enough to matter. "You do not have to control everything," I said. He laughed softly. "That is where you are wrong." I turned toward him. "That is where you are tired." For the first time, he did not hide it. The exhaustion, the pressure, the weight of being necessary to everyone and understood by no one. "You were not part of the plan," he said quietly. "I know. But now," he continued, "I find myself accounting for you." I did not respond, because that scared me too. Inside, the clock chimed midnight. "This changes nothing," he said, stepping back. "We stay within the agreement." "Yes," I agreed. But when he walked inside, I realized something irreversible had happened. The contract still existed, the rules were still written, but the distance they were meant to protect was disappearing. And once that distance was gone, no amount of control would be enough to bring it back. The gala was announced on a Tuesday morning. Black tie, press confirmed. Board members, donors, and media all in one room. The kind of night designed to reward perfection and punish weakness. "This one is non-negotiable," he said, standing at the foot of the stairs as I came down for breakfast. "Every major outlet will be there." I nodded. "Then we follow the rules." "Yes," he said, too quickly. The preparations felt heavier this time. The dress was chosen with more care. The jewelry, understated but deliberate. Every detail designed to send a message without saying a word. Stable, united, untouchable. As the car pulled up to the venue, flashes exploded against the windows. Reporters shouted his name. Cameras angled, waiting for the perfect image. He stepped out first, as always. Then he paused. Instead of offering his hand immediately, he looked at me. Not to signal, not to instruct, to check. "You ready?" he asked. I met his gaze. For the role. That earned a faint smile, the kind that did not belong to the public. Inside, the room was electric. Crystal chandeliers, polished floors, conversations layered with ambition. I felt the familiar tension return, settling between my shoulders like armor. We moved through the crowd seamlessly, compliments, questions, laughter timed just right. Then the antagonist appeared, a woman from his past, impeccably dressed, sharp smile, someone who knew exactly where to aim. "I did not expect to see you two still together," she said lightly, eyes fixed on me. "Business arrangements rarely last this long." The air shifted. He stiffened beside me. Before he could speak, I did. "Some arrangements evolve," I said calmly. "Others reveal their limits." Her smile faltered. Later, during a toast, another board member raised a glass and joked about how well he had managed to control the narrative this year. "Even at home," the man added, glancing at me, "everything appears disciplined." Laughter rippled across the room. I felt his hand tense at my side. This was the moment, the choice. Continue the act or end it. He turned toward me slowly. I looked up, ready for distance, ready for restraint. Instead, he pulled me closer, not gently, not carefully. He kissed me, not for the cameras, not for the board, for me. The room fell silent. Flashes erupted. Gasps followed. Somewhere behind us, a glass shattered. I froze, heart racing, the world narrowing to the space between us. When he pulled back, his voice was low, steady. "I am done pretending." The gala dissolved into noise, but I barely heard it. Outside, away from the crowd, I turned on him. "That was not in the contract," I said, breath unsteady. "I know. You crossed a line." "Yes." I waited for an explanation, a justification, a strategy. He offered none. "I will not ask you to stay," he said, "but I will not lie again." The words settled slowly. "What happens now?" I asked. He reached into his jacket and pulled out the folded contract. Then he tore it in half, piece by piece. No witnesses, no performance, just a choice. "I want something real," he said quietly, "even if it costs me everything else." I looked at the remains of the deal that had saved me, then at the man who had ruined it. And for the first time, I realized the greatest risk was no longer losing the arrangement. It was choosing him anyway. The fallout did not come immediately. It waited. The morning after the gala, the house felt different. Not quieter, tenser, like everything was holding its breath. He was already gone when I woke up. No note, no message, just the faint impression that something irreversible had been set in motion. By noon, the calls started. His assistant, the board, a public relations firm I had never heard of but somehow already knew too much about me. I did not answer. By evening, he returned. His jacket was gone, his tie loosened. The calm control he wore like armor was fractured, not broken, but cracked enough to show the weight underneath. "They want an emergency meeting," he said, setting his phone down on the counter. "They think I lost focus." "And did you?" I asked. He looked at me for a long moment. "Yes." The word landed heavier than any argument could have. We sat across from each other, the space between us suddenly unfamiliar. "You did not sign up for this," he said. "The scrutiny, the pressure, the consequences." "I signed up for the deal," I replied. "You ended it." "I know." Silence followed, thick, honest. "I can fix this," he continued. "I can tell them it was a calculated move, that the kiss was strategic." My chest tightened. "And would that be true?" I asked. He did not answer. "That was enough. I will not be part of another performance," I said quietly.
If you choose them, I walk away. He stood, pacing once, then stopping in front of me. I built my life on control, he said, on never needing anyone. And now the one thing I cannot control is what happens when you are not here. The words were not romantic. They were raw, unpolished. I am not asking you to save me, he added. I am asking you to stay while I face this. For how long? I asked. For as long as you choose. That was the difference. The next day, the board meeting happened without me. I stayed home, hands wrapped around a mug that had long gone cold, listening to the silence stretch. Hours passed. When the front door finally opened, I did not look up right away. They challenged me, he said. They questioned my judgment. They reminded me of everything I could lose. I waited. I told them I was done negotiating my personal life. I looked up then. They will adapt, he continued, or they will leave. And if they do not, I asked, then I build something new. For the first time, I saw him without the distance, without the calculations, just a man standing in the wreckage of his own certainty. I do not know how to do this without a contract, he admitted. I have never tried. I set the mug down and stood. Neither have I said, but I know how to choose. I took a step toward him, not because I am paid, not because I am obligated, but because I want to be here. His breath hitched, just once. He did not reach for me, did not pull me close. He waited. So I closed the distance myself. This time, there were no cameras, no witnesses, no expectations. Just two people standing in the aftermath of a deal that had turned into something neither of us could control. And for the first time, the future was uncertain. But it was honest, and that was enough to make me stay. The backlash arrived 48 hours later, not from the board, from the outside. Headlines appeared before breakfast, speculation wrapped in polite language, analysts questioning his stability, commentators debating whether emotion had compromised leadership. By noon, the calls were no longer requests. They were warnings. A major investor threatened to pull funding. A partner delayed a signature. Someone leaked a version of our contract to the press, carefully edited to make one thing clear. I had been a transaction. That night, he stood in the living room, phone still in his hand, jaw tight. They are trying to force a choice, he said. Reputation or you. I felt the words before I understood them. They will not stop, I replied. Not unless one of us steps away. He turned toward me immediately. No, this is not about pride, I said calmly. This is about leverage. You think I do not see that? He snapped, then stopped himself. I am sorry. I will not let them erase you. They already are, I said softly. The next morning, the antagonist made her move. She requested a private meeting with me. No lawyers, no assistants. Just a quiet restaurant across town, discreet enough to pretend this was not a confrontation. She arrived first. Perfect posture, calm smile, the kind of confidence that came from always landing on her feet. You handled the gala well, she said as I sat down. Very convincing. I was not acting, I replied. That is the problem, she said smoothly. Neither was he. She folded her hands. You are costing him more than you realize. I did not ask him to choose me, I said. No, she agreed, but you made it possible. She leaned in slightly. If you care about him, you will leave. The words were sharp, but measured. You walk away, the narrative stabilizes, she continued. The board regains confidence. He keeps his empire. And if I do not? Her smile faded. Then you will be remembered as the mistake. I did not respond right away. Do you know why he agreed to the contract in the first place? She asked. Because attachment makes him vulnerable, and vulnerability is expensive. I stood. Thank you for your honesty, I said. But you misunderstand something. She raised an eyebrow. I am not the risk, I said. I am the proof that he is capable of more than control. That afternoon, I packed a single bag. Not because she convinced me, but because I needed to know if this was a choice he could make without me standing in the room. I left a note on the table. Simple, direct. I need space, not to punish you, but to protect what is real. He did not call. That night, he faced the board alone. No contract, no wife at his side, no shield. When he came home, it was past midnight. I was gone.
He stood in the empty room, reading the note again and again, understanding finally what control had cost him. The next morning, he made his decision. He called an emergency press conference, not to apologize, not to explain, but to draw a line. "I will not sacrifice my personal integrity to maintain appearances," he said calmly to a room full of cameras. "Anyone who believes leadership requires emotional emptiness is free to leave." The room erupted. And miles away, sitting in a quiet hotel room, I watched him choose something no contract ever demanded: truth, even if it meant losing everything else. I did not expect him to find me, not that quickly. 3 days after the press conference, my phone rang with a number I did not recognize. I almost ignored it. Almost. "I am downstairs," his voice said when I answered. No greeting, no explanation. "I am not here to argue." I looked out the hotel window. His car was parked at the curb, understated, familiar. "You should not be here," I said. "I know," he replied, "but I needed to see you without an audience." I met him in the lobby. No suit, no entourage, just him, standing there like a man who had finally run out of strategies. "I resigned," he said quietly. The words took a moment to land. "You did what?" I asked. "I stepped down," he repeated. I handed control to the board, permanently. My first reaction was not relief. It was fear. "You built everything around that company," I said. "You do not just walk away from something like that." "I did not walk away," he said. "I chose differently." We sat across from each other, the same way we had when this began, but there was no contract between us now, no safety net. "They offered compromises," he continued. "Quiet ones. I could have stayed if I agreed to distance myself from you, to reframe the story. And you said no," I said. "Yes." "Why?" I asked. "Do not give me a speech. Tell me the truth." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Because every version of my life without you looked successful," he said. "And empty." I looked down at my hands. "This was never supposed to cost you everything," I said. "It did not," he replied. "It gave me something I did not know how to want." Silence stretched between us, not uncomfortable, just heavy. "I left because I needed to know you would choose without pressure," I said finally, "without me standing there." "I know," he said, "and you were right." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out something small, not a ring, the old contract, torn, folded, worn at the edges. "I kept this," he said, "to remind myself what not to hide behind." He set it on the table between us. "I am not asking you to come back," he said. "Not to the house, not to the role. I am asking you to start again, as two people who are free to leave." I met his eyes. "And if this is hard?" I asked. "It will be," he said. "And if we fail, then we fail honestly." I exhaled slowly. For the first time since signing my name, I felt the ground under my feet. "I am not the woman you hired," I said. "I will not be managed." "I am not the man who needed to manage everything," he replied. We stood. No kiss, no dramatic gesture, just a quiet understanding. "I am staying," I said, "but not because you gave something up." "Then why?" he asked. "Because you chose me when it cost you." He nodded once, not triumphant, not relieved, grateful. Outside, the city moved on, already finding new headlines, new narratives. Inside, something steadier began. Not a deal, not an act, but a beginning that required no pretending at all. The months that followed were quiet in a way I had never known. No schedules pinned to the refrigerator, no assistants waiting outside doors, no rehearsed smiles or strategic exits, just mornings that began without instructions and evenings that ended without performance. We moved out of the mansion, not in protest, not dramatically, simply because neither of us needed it anymore. The new place was smaller, sunlit, ordinary in the best way. We cooked together, badly at first, burned toast, laughed about it, learned each other without an audience watching. He started again, slowly, advising startups that valued ethics over optics, teaching young leaders who had never been told that success could include honesty. I returned to myself, not the woman who signed a contract out of desperation, but the woman who remembered how it felt to choose freely. One evening, after a long walk through the neighborhood, he stopped in front of a small park we passed every day. "I have something to ask you," he said. I smiled. "You do not need permission anymore." "I know," he replied. "That is why this matters." We sat on a bench, the city humming softly around us. He reached into his pocket, slower than before, as if afraid to break the moment. This time, there was no velvet box, just a ring, simple, honest, chosen without a committee. When I asked you to marry me the first time, he said, I needed control. I needed certainty. I needed a deal. He took my hand. This time, I have none of those things, he continued. I do not know what the future looks like. I only know who I want to face it with. I felt tears gather, not from surprise, but from recognition. This is not a proposal for a role, he said quietly. It is a request for a life, one you are free to refuse. I did not hesitate. Yes, I said. There were no cameras, no headlines, no applause, just a promise made without witnesses. We married again months later, not in a ballroom, not to impress anyone, just friends, family, and a ceremony that felt more like a conversation than a spectacle. No contracts, no conditions, only vows we wrote ourselves. Sometimes I think about the deal that started it all, the paper that promised safety but delivered something far more dangerous, love. If he had not needed to pretend, he might never have learned how to choose. If I had not needed to survive, I might never have learned how to trust. We married for a deal, but we stayed because we finally stopped pretending. And in the end, that was the only agreement that mattered.